Welcome back to the Science Fictionary podcast. I'm Andrew, and I'm here tonight with Marisha and Daniel, and David, and our very special guest from the Scarif podcast, Ro.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hey,
Doing good.
this is great. Hope the viewers enjoy the scenery.
Yes.
Here.
Oh, the dollhouse. Perfect.
Love the Barbie dream house in the background.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a different location tonight, but we're improvising. You know, I
works.
couldn't miss the show. I couldn't miss talking about the finale
Right?
of
Absolutely.
this show.
Yeah,
You kicked an 8-year-old girl out of her bedroom just so you could do.
She's
deep.
at her grandma's house. Don't tell me internet lies.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the science, about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Ro, this is the first time we've talked to you about the show. I mean, what have you thought about the show up to this point?
Well, I love it. I absolutely am enjoying Winter Soldier, or Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think I put it in the DM, our little Red 5 DM, that I'm actually enjoying this a lot more than WandaVision, and I'm also enjoying this a lot more than, hold on to your hats, The Mandalorian. And that's for several reasons. I think we can talk about why that statement holds true for me, but it's really an extension of the Marvel movies. I think they're doing it very well. I think everything is, it's looking like a little 6-hour movie, and I appreciate that. All the bells and whistles are there. I mean, that first episode, that first scene, I mean, that was like straight out of a movie. So I'm really happy that they maintain the quality of it to the level that we're used to as far as an MCU film. So kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what did the rest of y'all think about the finale?
I'm gonna let somebody else go first because I'm gonna get a little long-winded.
Want to hear you, David, because we didn't hear you last week either.
It's true.
Yeah, I was out for wisdom teeth stuff, but last week I loved the episode. I'll just say that, and it made me really excited for this finale. And going into this, I had really high expectations, and all of them were met and exceeded. There were a couple things I wanted out of this. I wanted a new, dope-looking Captain America suit for Sam, and I think we got that. It's ripped straight out of the comic book. That's one of the first ever comic book series that I was able to pick up from the very beginning and read it the whole way through and collect each individual issue, was when I started reading Sam as Captain America back in like 2016. So that was really special to me because that suit looks great. It's even if people don't like it, if you out there don't like it, it's too campy looking, too bright, at least appreciate that they took it straight out of what was designed in the comic books. So that was great, and I wanted to see what was next for John Walker. And leaving this episode, I'm a huge John Walker fan. I think that he's one of the most interesting characters in the MCU right now, and I saw a lot of people complaining that, oh, he's just a good guy now. No, it's not that simple. He's not just a good guy now. That moment before he grabbed... spoilers are spoiling the whole show, by the way. That moments before he grabbed the bus, he was thinking. That doesn't mean that now every single time he has a choice, he's going to do the right thing. He's going to have that moment where he's thinking about, what do I do? And sometimes he might make the wrong choice. That doesn't mean that he's now instantly good guy. I think it makes him really interesting. And I like what they were doing with him. Because Brad from the Red 5 Network was tweeting a lot about how he really appreciated the veteran that they were showing in the show, and how he had a lot of messed up stuff from the war. And a lot of people were hating on him without really thinking about that. And I think he's a really complex character. I think they portrayed it really well. And I'm super fascinated with him now. His U.S. agent suit looks great. I'm very excited to see what they do with John Walker and Sam and Bucky and Zemo. That's the most important part, is all the characters in this show that are coming out of it, I'm super invested in all of them.
Right.
And that's the most important part when it comes to these movies. If you don't care about the characters, it doesn't matter how many explosions you have going on in the background. I'm not going to watch the show or the movie.
Now they're all set up for more and hopefully better things from the way this show ended. So,
What were your thoughts, Marisha?
My thoughts, I really enjoyed the finale. There weren't any, I think the only thing that was really a surprise was that John Walker made some good decisions for the first time since we've seen him. We've seen him make a series of really bad decisions, kind of in the course of this show. And when he's been presented with those, that fork in the road, he tends to not take the good option. But he did this time, and I was not expecting that. I was just expecting to continue to see him get darker and darker as the story progressed. Yeah. And so when he showed up, and actually started kind of joining forces with the heroes, that wasn't the direction I was expecting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they took him, we started off with this hero and, war hero, and then we kind of moved him into this gray area of who are you going to be, which was really kind of the story, this whole story. This is what this whole 6 episodes it was about, was with a number of these characters is who are you? Like, who do you want to be? For Bucky and for Sam and for John Walker. And they really kind of moved him probably more into, at least in the MCU, the closest thing we've had to an anti-hero.
Right.
And I want to add that I think the entire show has the theme of duality. I mean, every character has a choice to make, including, and this is kind of like a little bit of a lofty concept, but, John Walker, obviously he had all-American hero, turns against his principles. Sam does not want the shield and is now eager to take it up, and obviously we know what happens. Bucky has this disconnect between, doing the right thing, hiding from himself, reaching out, and then being able to trust again. I mean, every character has a duality to them at the beginning of the show where they kind of flesh out, story-wise, they flesh that out, including, and we'll get into it, I'm sure, including the Shield, the history of the Shield, and the United States as it pertains to this era in the MCU, which I think is fascinating. And I think a lot of people are kind of glossing over that, or again, just getting upset because it's too political or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's an interesting thing for folks to discuss. And I know we before we started, we talked about how the art of discussion and debate is kind of lost on the Twitterverse, but I find it fascinating, and I think it's one of the reasons that I'm really enjoying the show.
Yeah. I'm really loving the show. I'm loving where they're going. I mean, there were hiccups along the way during the season. I never felt like the Flag Smashers were really fleshed out. I kind of almost wish we had an extra episode in there to just explore what they were about and maybe show some of what they went through during the blip. Because I didn't feel fully invested in them as the villain in this last fight. But what we've kind of discussed here, like, I mean, there are villains in play here, but the story's not about a villain. It's about the Shield. And so it's, I don't know, there's a lot of complex stuff going on here, and I know some people just don't like it, and that's fine. And I do understand that sometimes when things in the current climate in this country, sometimes when things turn political, some people tune out. And that's understandable. Politics are so divisive in this country. I understand when people go, nope, I'm out, because they've taken all of it they can take over the last couple of years. But I think that and we discussed this at length last week, there's a lot of really important stuff being addressed. And I know there's been the accusation that it's too political or too woke, but I think that sometimes when we talk about wokeness, we get into like bashing people over the head with things, but I think this is addressing things that are important. And we talked about this at length last week, so I'm not going to go that much back into it. But like the stuff with Isaiah Bradley, there's so much reality to that story. Like those sorts of things happened. It's real, and we don't want to bury our head in the sand and pretend like those things aren't realistic.
And with what the subject matter was, I felt that it was a natural progression. The politics they were talking about, it wasn't politics out of nowhere. They didn't use an opportunity to talk about something that wasn't related to what the show is. I mean, everything got here naturally. We saw
Yeah.
Sam introduced back in 2013 when Winter Soldier came out, maybe 2014, and they haven't had a conversation about the things they had conversations about until now, which has been 8 years. Like they have spent a long time naturally building up to Sam becoming Captain America. So I think they've earned a little bit of being allowed to talk about the implications of that.
Right.
Well, we talked about that last week. Like Andrew said, we talked about this kind of stuff in as deep as we've ever gotten in one of our podcasts about this sort of thing. And that was, I said it a lot last week. I feel like I'm repeating myself. You can't tell the story we're telling using the characters we're using and not get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
absolutely.
when we talk about this episode versus last week's episode, because I can't help but compare them, the conversations last week, as David pointed out, felt so natural, and in the flow of the story and things we needed to address, and they worked for the conflict of the story. They worked for, the development of Sam's character. They worked for the situation we were in. They felt so natural and so right that that was my favorite episode of the season. I love the slower beats to the action, and I love the character moments we got and the development we got. And then this week, where those kind of things worked last week, this week's episode, it almost got a little too preachy for me. Like it started losing me just a little bit.
It was a little more pointed.
I have been a supporter of the themes this show's trying to address, and I have been a defender of the way they've tried to address them. But like Marissa just said, that it was a little too on the nose with the speech Sam gave the senators, and it's true. Those are complicated issues, and they do need to be looking at both sides of those issues. But that whole drawn-out monologue, it almost felt like they wanted to just slap you in the face with it.
It was one step from grabbing the camera and looking straight at it.
It was. Well, it felt it felt a little. I mean, the thing about the speech, it's so long and it's so complex that it doesn't feel. It feels like Sam had already written that speech and had it ready to give. Like he almost should have had.
Real people don't talk that way,
right? I get where it was going. Like the things he's saying. I mean, he compares them to Thanos. It's like you have so much power, and you make decisions for the little person, but you don't involve that person when you make decisions for them.
Right. And those are the issues they're dealing with in the show do draw parallel to our real world situations in a lot of ways now. So that is and not even a very well veiled attempt to sort of talk about the way we address issues in the real world. And they do deal with the race issue again, just point blank, which I have no problem with. But again, whenever you do it the way they did it this week, it's almost a little too, I don't know another word for it. It's almost a little too preachy for me. Like it's a little bit too on the nose.
It certainly toed the line.
I think it has worked throughout the course of the show. I think it worked last week. Like I said, it's my favorite episode. This one started to get away from me a little bit.
Right.
But I still enjoyed it. I like where we ended up with where all the characters are. And I think it was a good show.
So am I the only person who actually plans out monologues in their head for all of life's events? For real, if I sit down and have a real conversation with somebody, maybe it's just anxiety or something, but literally, if I have something that I've been dwelling on and working through for myself, if I sit down and start to talk about it, you're getting the speech. And we've gotten the speech a few times just on the podcast. I agree. It kind of felt a little bit that way, but
one of the things
basically, if me and you were having a conversation and I brought up a subject matter, Marisha goes, "Ooh, I have a monologue for that."
It's filed.
Is it true?
Don't answer that, Andrew. Don't answer that.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. You know, one of the things that I found interesting of that monologue that Sam gave is that this is kind of, I don't know if it's the first time, but to me it felt like it really was the first time that this franchise was talking not only to the American public, but to the politicians that are putting these policies in place in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, you know, all of us, you know, there's homeless people down the street, but yet we've got like millions of dollars to do X over here and this and that. So it's like, where are our priorities when it comes to taking care of our own, taking care of the country, et cetera, et cetera. So it was kind of refreshing in that way, where it wasn't, to me anyways, it wasn't too like preachy to me, but it definitely gave the message to the people in power. And basically, you know, obviously it stuck out like a sore thumb, because we got all this action MCU, and all of a sudden here's this little, you know, powwow in the middle of this action scene. Yeah. But I think it was done on purpose, because it really puts a microscope over that conversation and makes you think, like, what are they saying? What's going on here? So
right.
I didn't have a big problem with that, and I think that's one of the reasons that really worked. It could have been by accident or by design, but in the long run, I think it worked for me, anyways.
It was definitely a contrast, and I understand why people didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And like at about probably minute 3 of the monologue, I was like, this isn't going to go great. Like this is right. You know, people are not going to love this. Yeah. Like I agreed with most of what he had to say, but it was like, by the end of it, I was kind of like, all right,
yeah,
just let's finish
up.
What
makes an interesting point, actually, that I didn't think of it. It just sort of felt like just a long diatribe on politics and issues in this country in general. But you're right. Even in that scene, directly, he's speaking to politicians.
Right. Yeah.
And that doesn't get done a lot. Like that's,
no.
You know, I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. And that is actually, we're going to get off topic, I guess, but that's something that needs to happen in this country. Like,
I mean,
politicians.
I was listening to that diatribe, and I'm like, yeah, damn it, what the hell? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I have, you know, conversations with friends about stuff like that, and it is interesting, because it's like, you know, where's all this money coming from when we have, you know, social issues that need funding for this program or that program? You know, there's homeless people down the street, but nobody cares about them, but we care about this. It's like, again, you know, the country prioritizes, you know, some weird stuff.
Cost of one jet in the Air Force can pay off the student debt crisis.
Sure.
But you need defense too. But that's the thing.
I know. That's why
it's a representative republic, right? It's a representative democracy. It's a republic. But it's really hard to vote for people who represent your values when there's not a single politician on the ballot who represents all your values.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, go run yourself.
Does anybody ever think
We're not
of
a
that?
politics show. I'm sorry.
What is it? Third Rock from the Sun, and there you got to go vote. But I hate them. I hate them all. That's me every election cycle. I was like, don't like you.
I have said this before because it's the truth. Since I was old enough to vote, there has never been a presidential candidate that I was just like, that's my guy. There's never been one where I was 100%, I'm really excited to vote for this dude. I feel like I'm voting between the lesser of two evils every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we're not a politics show, y'all. I'm sorry. I got us on a sidetrack.
But you know what, though? It gives us an opportunity to discuss, and I don't think a lot of people are doing it. People are like, you know, shoving it under the rug and just hating on it for whatever reasons. But I think it's good to, you know, I mean, I opened up your mind as far as the dialogue for the you know, the politicians. So that's right. Great. If it starts somewhere, then it spreads out. I think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like Marisha said, like I love what's in the speech. It's just kind of the way it's presented, just kind of like misses the mark just a little bit.
That's it.
But I think that the message that it presents is great, and very much in keeping with where we kind of seen Sam headed this whole season, and kind of that's the culmination of his journey is in that speech.
When he's keeping the tradition, Steve Rogers was a very he was out for the right thing. He was out for he doesn't like bullies, and he believes in doing the right thing no matter what, no matter who says you have to sign on this dotted line. He's going to do what he thinks is right, and I think that.
Well, and it's in keeping with the tradition that Captain America represents the people.
Right. And I
not
think
the government.
Exactly. And I think that Sam is definitely carrying on all of the best things about Steve Rogers, because Steve was never unwilling to get up and give a little speech his own self about how he felt things ought to be.
Right.
And then also that brings up sort of the, because you can't help but compare John Walker to Steve, right?
Right. You have to.
So like we were talking about villain or hero or anti-hero. The thing about Walker or about U.S. Agent in particular, was never a straight villain. The thing about Walker that makes him more complicated is that he's also, at his core, he's also always been a character who's wanted to do the right thing and get to the right place. The problem was, or not necessarily the problem, just the difference was his idea of the right thing and his idea about how to get there were always different than Steve's. He's just a different character.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I've never been the U.S. agent guy anyway. I never got into that. There were people, they were going to replace Steve with John Walker just for a little while. New character, new blood in their booth sales for a year. Done. Get him out. Bring Steve back. People started writing in not wanting Steve back. Like, this was the late 80s. This was, he was the Punisher in Stars and Stripes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what that character was. And I've never been one of those people who understood them wanting John Walker to be the full-time Captain America. Of course, that was 30 years ago. Nobody would want that now, especially after these films we've had for the last decade. But that's the core of that character, is that he's still a guy always trying to do the right thing. He just always has a different idea about how to get there and what the right thing is.
Yeah, and I wasn't too familiar with that comic book character before this. I did a little bit of research and realized that they were setting the stage for this. But, I really didn't like Walker at the beginning. He was just a whiny, uptight, whatever character. But like Brad was saying, they really showed the trauma that he went through, and you saw some of the flashbacks. It seems like he was having some sort of like mental issue. So there was definitely something going on with him internally. And I think that's what makes that character, it's at least what made his character turn out to be more relatable or even likable, I want to say. And again, going back to my original comment about the duality of characters here, I mean, that's another aspect of his character. And this last episode really showed us, I guess, because it seemed like they worked together to get to a common goal. And whether they're setting, and again, I'm not familiar with U.S. Agent, so unless they're kind of I don't know, pulling the wool over our eyes to kind of set that stage maybe for an even bigger betrayal.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty cool. I think the way they handled this character was great. I think he was kind of a throwaway character at the beginning. It's like, the first time you saw him, his suit didn't really, I don't know, there was just something off. He was obviously no Steve Rogers.
Right.
But now, I like him a lot better now than I did before. So something happened.
Right. What I would like to, like, I think what would be cool to see, if we're going to get a U.S. Agent show and he's working with Valentina, does he start off just being her agent, being U.S. agent? And this is going to sound very formulaic, but I think it'd be interesting to see, do we get to see her sort of twist around right and wrong and use him for her own means, and him sort of go along with the thing, he's doing the right thing at first, and then slowly realize, wait a minute, this is, and we get to see even more of a crisis of conscience for him.
Sure.
That would be interesting and create a lot of drama. See how he reacts to it and where that character goes from there.
Yeah.
If he starts to notice that Valentina's just using him and this isn't what I signed up for, this isn't what I wanted to fight for, and he gets another one of those do the right thing moments, I think would be interesting to see.
It's almost like a weird reverse hero's journey, back and forth. But yeah, I think I'd like that.
Yeah, I like John a lot. I like that he exists because he's a wild card now. You really don't know what he's going to do, where he's going to end up. I mean, he's working for Madam Hydra now. But I don't think he realizes that. Like, he doesn't know that this lady's associated with Hydra.
She's not Madam Hydra yet in the show. We don't, in the MCU, we don't know that yet.
I mean, she didn't walk in and be like, "I am Madam Hydra," but I mean, like, it's Madam Hydra. Like, that's the character. I think it's fair to.
She was also a Shield agent.
Yeah,
She's been a lot of different things.
Agents.
She's been a lot of different things.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever read a comic book with her in it, but
Well, I think the Madam Hydra story, from what I can gather, is a relatively short period. You really think they're going to do Madam Hydra? Because I mean, I
don't think it's going to be Madam Hydra. We talked about this whenever she first showed up.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be Madam Hydra. I think we've sort of killed Hydra in the MCU, but I think it's going to be a twist on that type of character. Yeah,
No,
she's going
Hydra.
to be leading her own little organization that's got their own agendas, and that's where we're going with that.
I think her and Sharon are going to team up.
I think they may already be.
Right.
Sharon's interesting.
Sharon.
Yeah,
I wasn't
she was the
real
power
happy
broker.
about
Shocker.
Yeah, me neither.
That is not.
No, that was. I think that was as far as things that were kind of hiccups along the way in this show, because there were a few things about the writing here and there that were not great. And if the story's true, if the rumors are true that they had to basically rewrite large portions of this show because it was originally revolving around some sort of virus,
right,
then I can understand why there's things that just don't seem quite right. But what were you going to say, David?
So the thing about Sharon is, and I get that, like, especially what my dad's been, Daniel, I never know what to call you on the show because, like, the audience,
keep it official.
What Daniel's been saying, what Sir Daniel Curtis has been saying is,
good grief,
is that, this is not Sharon Carter, this is not her character, but we did miss 5 years of character development, and the stuff that we saw her in, it's not like she was like.
Wait, did Sharon subvert your expectations?
She did subvert my. Actually, no, she didn't, because from the very first episode she was in, I was like, oh, she's a power broker.
Yeah, you could see it coming.
Right.
Just none of us wanted it to happen.
Right,
and
that's
really, I really didn't think they were going to do it.
Development. I mean, to be fair.
I know that, but
that does bother me as bad writing, because like Steve was alive for those 5 years. Are you telling me that Steve didn't give her a freaking phone call? Like, she would not have become power broker.
I honestly assumed she'd been snapped. I'm not even lying.
But I don't think she was.
No, she wasn't.
She wasn't. So it's kind of weird. I mean, like, I don't buy it. Like, she walks out at the end, she's like, "Get the buyers ready." Like, I'm like laughing. Like, she's like, it's like, I'm not taking.
Maybe she's a double. Maybe she's a double agent.
She's playing.
The whole thing. It's not even the snap. It's not even the snap. It's the entire period of time since Civil War. She's been in exile.
Right.
And so were Steve.
2 years.
Right, but so were Steve and Sam and Natasha. They all were kind of exiled too until the snap happened. Yeah. After that, everything changed. So you would think things could have changed for her too, but they never did. That's why I'm saying I assume she was snapped.
Maybe by that point,
but she wasn't, and it just kind of screws it up. I don't
know what the right answer.
I never did like it. I never liked it.
What I don't like about it is that it was clearly meant to be our big twist at the end of the season. That, oh, wait, Sharon is the power broker. And it's like, yeah, we already knew that.
That was utterly predictable. Yeah.
And that's where my problem with the whole thing is that they clearly meant for that to be the big twist at the end. And they gave it away too early.
Mm-hmm.
I spent the whole season going, no, that they're trying to play us like somebody else is the power broker, even till last week. And then, no, she's the power broker.
Right. It was anticlimactic because you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Even though
it's
you
still
didn't
such a
want it to be
weird
coming.
concept.
It's like what Andrew's trying to say is they made it so obvious that they actually had you thinking, no, that's not what they're doing. There's a double twist here.
It was too obvious.
Right?
Well, especially after WandaVision. You're
Oh
like,
my
nope,
gosh.
the first assumption is never right. Well,
All right,
Yeah.
so
except when
so
it is.
backing up to the beginning of the episode, David told us what he thought about the suit, but what did everybody else think about the suit?
The suit was awesome.
I like the suit.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's
like at heart, again, you guys mentioned it. Very similar. I mean, lifted straight from the comic books.
yeah, it's the color scheme matches the comic books, and then some of the other design elements are all taken from parts of previous outfits worn by Steve. It's got the kind of the World War II pants going on, and a couple of other things. Got the Winter Soldier, Captain America star, and that shape across the chest. But I mean, they pulled the color scheme straight out of the comic books.
Yeah.
And I think, and like David said, it's very bright. It's almost a little campy that it's so bright, but at the same time, I think that they were doing that intentionally. It's meant to stand apart from John Walker's outfit at the end. It's very
Right.
dark with just the red stripes.
And I love that. I mean, clearly, this is Bucky ordered it like, make it the most blatantly
That's right.
blazing stars and stripes thing
Right.
you can possibly conceive.
Yeah.
Just to screw with him, huh?
And the
Exactly,
thing
yeah.
is, like, he knew, like, I guess basically he knew if he goes for this, he's going all in, I guess. And he did. It was a very, but I think, and I also think it's kind of funny that the Wakandans don't seem like they probably would be real into that kind of thing. I wonder, like, how much convincing he had to do to convince him, like, no, like, straight up Captain America.
But I love it. I mean, it's definitely, they didn't tell us it's vibranium, but the wings deflect an entire helicopter.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, it was actually because I know some people were kind of criticizing, like, oh, where did he come off, catching that truck? And it's like, did you see Black Panther? Like,
Right.
he wasn't superpowered. He had like
Well, he
the
was
super
superpowered.
suit,
Which I
He was
really
superpowered?
appreciate.
Yeah, Black Panther's very superpowered.
Okay, you're right.
Potion he took,
But
but also
anyway.
the suit was a big part of it. But I still do really appreciate that they made the point to say it was made by the Wakandans, because that makes it believable when you want to have him do super heroic things without him having taken the super soldier serum.
Right.
Usually, someone takes a super soldier serum and then you can just believe they can do anything and they can just write
Yeah.
it off as that. Now, in this case, it's the Wakandans probably did something. The suits, ballistic fibers or whatever, BS words like that. They like to throw out there.
Vibranium? That's really the only word you need.
Oh yeah, it's a vibranium. It's a vibranium
Endoskeleton.
power core. Vibranium endoskeleton with the ballistic fibers of the fourth god of the sun, like something stupid like that. Of the Panther
Vibranium
god.
can do anything.
Yeah.
It's not stupid. It's science.
No. But in Black Panther, they showed.
Sure.
Science so advanced you would call it magic, as
There you
Thor
go.
says.
So what did everybody think about, as I've said, I didn't really love, I felt like we were missing a lot of stuff with the Flag Smashers, but what did y'all think about their kind of full story and and really Carly's story? Because by the end, Carly's a true believer. Like she is the definition of a true believer. And her crew is not really on board by the end.
Yeah.
For me, Carly ruined the Flag Smashers for me personally, just because by the end of it, I was so over her crap. Like, every time she opened her mouth, I was sick of hearing her blabber. I was sick of the stuff she said. I was ready for
But
someone to kick her in the
David-
face. No, you don't talk to Bucky Barnes about fighting for something bigger than yourself. Shut up. He fought
I agree with you there. I agree with you
Like,
there. I
She
get it.
thinks, like she has drank her own Kool-Aid that she is the new Captain America saving the world. And here's the thing about the Flag Smashers that I've
But
had
it's
a
like
problem
Andrew
with.
just said, she is a true believer.
Right, and that makes me want to see her
But
get kicked in the face.
the thing about true believers who think some people matter and some people don't,
Yep.
they become very dangerous people.
She was dangerous, and I get why it works, and superficially, like on a surface level, I completely understand her motivations. I fully sympathize with them. Presentation-wise, the Flag Smashers did not come across to me
No,
in the way
agree.
that I think the show wanted them to.
I
agree.
kept forgetting that some of them had the super serum in them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I'm like, why are these guys so fleshy strong? And I'm like, oh, that's right. But they were still they still were kind of annoying. I think there was a lot going on in the series, and I think Flag Smashers was something that, I don't know, maybe didn't they didn't foster that storyline as much as the rest of it, because it was almost like a distraction.
yeah.
But I realized that I guess they needed to come into play for the message, especially the message with Sam's little speech at the end. If the Flag Smashers weren't there, then that speech wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah,
Right.
and I guess the problem I have with them is that their end goal was never super clear to me. Now I get like they could say like why it's like one world, one people. Okay, but what does that mean? Like, what are you doing? What are the things that you're trying? What are the goals that you have? Even in this last episode, I mean, if I think about it for 5 seconds, I can think about what they're trying to get to. But from a straightforward standpoint, like I don't think the show presented their goals very well.
And that's what I mean about not fostering that concept too well. Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
why
I
I
do.
keep going back to they really should have shown us life during the blip.
Yeah.
Because that's what they keep saying is we want things to go back to like they were during the blip. Well, the audience doesn't understand
Well,
that.
also, like, how are you going to get there? I want them to say, like, okay, we're going to kidnap these senators as hostages and make them sign a bill that says this. Did they say that in the episode, or did I miss that?
No, they were trying to make them stop voting the repatriation stuff.
Right.
But
I
you're
got
right.
that.
It was all
There
kind
was
of
some there was some specific stuff spelled out, and kind of just little pieces here and there through the whole season about what they were doing. And I do think they did some interesting stuff with the Repatriation Council.
Right.
And it's kind of that also ties into
great world
what
building.
Sam is saying, because Sam's like, your peacekeeping operation is carrying weapons. Like, and we had called that out early on in the season, you know, when they were storming that building with John Walker. It's like, yeah, these are people that are supposed to be helping people.
It's like the Red
After
Cross
the
starts
blip.
showing up with guns. Like,
Right.
yeah, sorry.
They
No.
somebody said something very interesting, and again, it was little tidbits here and there, but they said something about, you know, what do you expect people to do after living in a place for so many years, and all of a sudden the real owners show up? What do you do with those people?
Correct. And what do you expect the people who are
Right.
showing back up to do?
Exactly. So
It's
again,
complicated.
yeah. I think it just needed another, you know, maybe another episode, but maybe just tweaked it out a little bit more.
They didn't flesh them out very well. The Flag Smashers actually, that whole subplot never really did anything for me. Like, we all knew, and you could see it and feel it watching the show, the real conflict of the show was the Shield and Steve's legacy, and how we honor that, and how we carry that forward, and who's worthy of it, and who's not, or any of us. And that was the real conflict of the show. It was never the Flag Smashers. So they didn't, like I said, that whole conflict and that particular group and that whole subplot never did anything for me. Carly specifically as a character, I liked. I thought and the more I watch Erin Kellyman, the more I like her as an actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that character I enjoyed. Like, you could.
Yeah, she did good,
I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed following that character and sort of getting into what she was trying to do and making a little conflict there. But the Flag Smashers themselves and that whole subplot as a whole, outside of just sort of her couple little character moments, never really did anything for the show.
I think her character would have been great in another show
Yeah.
that dealt specifically with that cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the moment where Sam's trying to talk her down. And even, like David said, like, how dare she call out Bucky for fighting for a cause. But that conversation with Bucky, those character moments she had, I enjoyed.
But I mean, how many, she's 18, 20?
I was going to say the same thing. Go
How
ahead.
many
They
of
called her a
us?
teenager. They called her a teenager in the show.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I don't know
I don't
about
know if she was
anybody
supposed
else,
to be
but
17 or
I
18,
knew
I guess.
everything when I was 18. I could solve the world's problems.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, and they show that a number of times. She says things that's just, somebody will be listening to her talk, and she'll say something. It's just like, I don't know, and it's like David called out a minute ago. I mean, she tells Bucky, have you, try fighting for something bigger than yourself.
He told her, I did that 3 times.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're talking about somebody who fought literal Nazis. Like, yes,
Yeah.
As
he has
Marisha's
fought
trying to
for
say,
something bigger than himself. So,
I guess I always hate people, and maybe that's the point because I am so close to the age of 18. So most of my peers, I knew a lot of people like that. People who think that they're George Washington crossing the Delaware anytime they tweet something that is kind of political, and they think that they're like charging forward to like save the world, and they're like anybody on any side of the political spectrum of anything. I always got so annoyed when anybody would do that, no matter what it was on any side. When people think that they have like a messiah complex, is a good way of saying it. I think Harley did. Now, as a character, I think it worked. Like I think that like that came. If that's what they were going for, it perfectly came across. I didn't like her as a villain only because to me she became the villain that I just wanted to get off my screen. I don't want to see, like, Zemo's a villain who I want to see more of, for example, even though I know that he's wrong about what he says, but he's still just as gray. I mean, just like Harley, he's kind of a gray character, but I don't want him to I want to see more of him. I don't want him to go away. Every time Carly was on screen, it became, in wrestling, it's called X-Pac heat, where it's like, we don't just hate you because you're a good villain. We hate you because we want you to go away. Just go away. And that's how I felt about her. And just that last moment with Bucky, that was, I tweeted about it instantly. I paused the show and I went and tweeted about it because I was just so frustrated with that line. But I guess as a character, that's kind of the point.
That tweet saved the world.
Youth.
Yes.
You're right. I was George Washington crossing the Delaware.
Exactly.
Tweeting that, saying, yeah.
So all of the Flag Smashers are gone, all dead. So what did y'all think about the way they went out?
That was Zemo's doing, huh? That was the implication.
Absolutely.
There. That was awesome.
You got your wish. They're gone.
Right. But then the Countess is sitting there going, it's almost like I planned it, but I didn't.
Or did
That was funny. That was
Who was that? Let me ask you, who was that old guy that they had a shot of this old guy in a truck?
Zemo's
Butler.
Oh, okay. I didn't
That's
recognize
the guy that
him.
met him at the plane.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah, so apparently Zemo's butler is an assassin also.
It's Alfred.
But,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, Alfred was MI6. Now, don't be knocking Alfred.
but I mean, that's kind of what they've made that character. He's Zemo's Alfred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't think we were going to see Zemo again, so I kind of despite the fact they locked him in the raft, he finished what he was out to finish.
He's still pulling a few strings.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he's involved going forward, because I think he's a character that you can involve in a lot of ways and in a lot of different character stories.
So why does he decide not to? He tells Bucky, "I've decided not to kill you." Why did he decide that? Because he has a real issue with superpowered people. Period.
Yeah, but maybe for a reason. I think his motivation, it's not just because he wants to kill superpowered people, but maybe he sees some sort of worth in Bucky that
I've decided you're not a risk after all.
Right. Yeah.
I think he has a respect.
Yeah.
Well, and he had a certain amount of respect for Steve.
True.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he's come to see that in Bucky, and also I think he's a complex character enough to say that I used you once. I almost I owe you not to kill you right now. I could see that being I think there's a lot of different strings, but also it could very much be a thing of I have use for you later. You're just
right.
I'm still, I'm
Yeah,
not done with you yet.
I'm not sure what it was, and it might have just been pure arrogance too, as Bucky and the Dora Milaje are showing up to take him away. He's like, I've decided I'm not going to kill you.
Right, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know, like somehow, like I'm still in control here.
Well, I do like the idea that like he's almost like a Batman, where it's like he can snap his fingers and something gets done. Like he has contingency plans for everything.
Right.
Like maybe up in the mountains there was a sniper waiting to take out Bucky if he would have just blinked a certain way.
But also, in one of the previous episodes, Zemo and Sam had a conversation when Bucky wasn't in the room, and Zemo said something about the serum. I forget how he put it, but Sam told me, so how do you explain Bucky? And Zemo didn't have an answer for him. You know, so I mean that he probably had already also started to see that Bucky's also one of those people like Steve that the serum didn't drive them nuts.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, he was a good person to start with.
Correct.
Right.
Like, and that's what they're always talking about, is that magnifying of who you are. And so Bucky was a good person to start with. Now, he got used and brainwashed, but that wasn't the serum that made him that person. That was the conditioning.
Hydra programming, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what did y'all think? We already talked about Sam's speech at length, but there's kind of a second part or a follow-up to that as far as concluding that part of the story in Isaiah Bradley's story. What did y'all think about the conclusion to that arc?
That was nice. That was really nice to see.
One thing about MCU, man, they really know how to pull at your heartstrings, because when they went into the museum and they, you know, he showed them the statue and the little monument or whatever, I was my eyes leaked. I'm not gonna lie. It was nice.
Yeah, it's a really great moment. It's it was a good moment. It really kind of hit you in the gut, and it's it was getting to see that character have closure, because you're talking about a character, and we talked about it. He's angry, he's bitter, maybe a little bit jealous. There's a lot of complexity going on with his emotions, and it's nice to see. Sam tells him, now everybody will know your story, and it was a nice conclusion to that arc, I thought.
Well, we kind of talked about, Andrew and I were talking about kind of going forward, kind of the direction we hope this story kind of goes. And we were just, he was saying, now that we've kind of dealt with some of the issues, I hope we get to see, it's an imaginary world. I hope we get to see some of what we wish the world was. And I feel like that was a good,
Right.
seeing that recognition for Isaiah Bradley is a good example of, this is the world that I would like my children to live in, where even things that have gone badly in the past, we can acknowledge the heroism, of people that have come before us. And, that's one of the things I kind of appreciate it. I feel like it's kind of setting the stage for things to be a little better, maybe, at least in Marvel world.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like, now that we've done this, now that we've addressed these things, we've told this story, and with a lot of indicators pointing in the direction of this getting a second season.
Well, we're getting a Captain America 4.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of talk about that out there now, but there was some interesting stuff where WandaVision was submitted for awards for a limited series, because they've already said this is a one-time thing. You can't do this. They submitted Falcon and Winter Soldier for daytime or for a drama series, meaning that there's some at least desire to move forward with this as a TV series as well. So.
That'd be great. Give us Cap 4. Give us this again.
Yeah. So depending on what they opt to do there, whether it be a movie or a TV series, what do you want to see? I mean, because kind of my thing is what Marisha was talking about. Like, we've done this stuff, we've talked about it. Not that we should never, ever touch those things again, but, like, now we've addressed it, and now do we move forward? Because this isn't our world, this is a fictional world, and like Marisha was saying, do we continue to harp on this? I think there's a danger for the show in continuing to try to go to that well.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, too. Like we said, there are a lot of different directions a lot of these characters can go. They're all set up to continue stories. So you might even run it and not include Sam at all. If Sam gets a Captain America movie, which he should, and I think he will.
I think they confirmed it. I thought
I
it was
think they
reported
confirmed
by,
it too. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So
everybody.
if you, but if you do that and don't include him in the next season of the show, and of course you need to retitle it. It's not Falcon and Winter Soldier or Captain America and Winter Soldier without Sam, unless it's Falcon and Winter Soldier and Joaquin's involved. But there's no connection between Bucky and Joaquin, so I don't really see that happening.
Right.
Also, I want him to
Does
stop
it become
calling
a
Bucky
U.S.
Winter
agent
Soldier.
show? Does it become a U.S. agent show? Does it become a Winter Soldier show?
I think they have to strike while the iron is hot. I think, we will get a Captain 4. We will get, most likely because of the popularity of what we just saw, this first season of Falcon. And did you guys see the credits at the end? They no longer called it the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They
Captain
changed
America.
Captain America
Captain
and the
America
Winter
and
Soldier.
Winter
So
Soldier, right.
I think that's I think that's where that's going.
I just want him to stop calling him Winter Soldier. I feel so bad for Bucky. Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Well, and we even had a line where, and we need to talk about this too. The end of Bucky's arc, Bucky having his closure with all the things that he's done in his past. And so we get this moment where he does go back and reveal what happened. And he essentially tells the guy, I was the Winter Soldier. That's not who, I didn't have a choice. That's not who I am anymore.
I really hope that we didn't see the full conversation and he explained it.
No, we definitely didn't see the whole
Instead of just
I'm
him
the Winter
saying, like,
Soldier. See ya.
Not.
I had
Right.
a Winter Soldier. I didn't have a choice. But I really hope that they talked for a couple hours with him fully explaining. Okay, so there's this thing called Hydra, and I was brainwashed. Backyard TARDIS. I want to answer his question before he goes, if we can.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
loved the stuff with the therapist, man. I thought that was important for Bucky's character. Personally, I would remove, if I could redo everything, I would just remove a lot of the stuff at the beginning. I hate to say it, but maybe with the boat, only because I don't think it paid off well enough. I don't think that they came back around with the bank and everything. All that stuff was really drawn out. And at the end, they kind of just like, and let's just keep the boat. Yay. Like, it's like, wait, what? And then they're just having a party at the end. I don't think it was paid off well enough.
There
the
were a
stuff they
few
set up
things
there.
that
No,
I
I
didn't feel were
disagree.
paid off. I mean, I think we went to Madripoor because it was a cool thing for our
I would have
characters
cut out.
to do.
I would have cut out all that crap. I would have cut all that out.
The stuff with Madripoor, while it's really cool to actually see Madripoor in the MCU, it was kind of inconsequential to this overall story.
Yeah, so
It was.
I get what Backyard TARDIS is saying there with 1 to 3 dragged out too much and condensing it. I would remove the Madripoor stuff and the Smiling Tiger. I mean, we don't need to see the long, drawn-out scene.
Right.
I mean, that scene was
See,
kind of funny,
no.
him trying to...
I'm actually of a different mind on this. I do think there were things that could have been cut out. However, I would make the argument that all of those things that we're saying could have been cut out could have been made better by making this series 2 episodes longer and spending more time addressing those things.
Letting them breathe a little
That's
bit.
true. I think
We're going to
that's
start
fair say.
calling this the Hobbit movie phenomenon. It's like there's too much of it, and the only way to make it better
Is give
is
it more.
More of it.
Yeah, and I was going to say make it shorter or maybe streamline it, because I think the stuff with the boat and the relationship, the stuff where Bucky and Sam are really, relating to each other and learning how to deal with each other, I think that was great stuff, and I think it was integral in how they ended up, being such in such close camaraderie with each other. I think Did it last maybe a little too long? Probably. I think a little more streamlined. I didn't mind the therapist stuff at all. Again, going back to, we have to find out what is going on in Bucky's head. So I think that kind of fulfilled that.
Yeah.
And that couples therapy was golden.
There are so many parallels between characters. And to me, that's the interesting thing in this whole series is these parallels we draw between characters who have different points of view. And I think if you take all the therapist stuff out, you're minimizing Bucky's issue because we don't have one broken soldier in this story. We've got two.
Yeah, really. And
one who's dealing with, one who's addressing it, and one who's not.
And I feel like we kind of, when we first meet Sam, we get the impression that he's kind of been a broken soldier too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's managed to kind of rebuild himself a little
and he's trying to fix himself by trying to fix others as well. So we do have 3 broken soldiers that are trying.
When we first met Sam, he was running a support group for
right.
Yeah.
All right. So, did y'all have any other thoughts on the conclusion to Bucky's story?
I think he was a little underused in the show almost. Obviously he did stuff in the fights or whatever, but honestly, when I look at the show's overall plot, the overall arc, and you take away Bucky, let's just pluck Bucky from it, how much of the plot really changes?
But I think Sam's entire story falls apart without Bucky.
Now, I agree, Bucky's
good. If you take Indiana Jones out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, nothing changes either, but you're not watching that movie without him.
That's fair, but I just don't think that... I think he was a little underused. I don't think he got enough development himself and enough stuff going on with him. Yeah. Personally, something just felt missing for me there. I think he was great. I loved him in the show. I loved him so much that I wanted him to do more. He felt like by the end of it, he felt more like a sidekick to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that, but I think that they've got big things planned ahead going, with Bucky. I still think that this show was really about both of them moving beyond being someone's sidekick.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cut the check.
All right, so the other big thing. This episode is action from start to finish, which is very Marvel of them. Very MCU, which is great. I loved it. But what did y'all think about all the action? We got to see Sam's new suit that can do things the old one couldn't. We got a lot of great action from Bucky, as well as we had half a dozen super soldiers fighting on the other side. So
I'm going to say this about the action scenes. If I have to watch one more show with a scene of a character flying over water and his wings have to dip the water every time he makes a turn, I'm going to throw something at the screen.
That's the visual effects artist showing off.
We'll
have to talk to Yoshibu about that.
I am so sick of that trope. I can't take it anymore.
And those are some of the things that, like the fight scenes and stuff like that, all the action stuff. Again, getting back to what I said earlier when we first started the show, that's what made me really appreciate the look and feel of this series, because it was less of a low budget series the way I guess some of the other stuff is. It just really looked like it was taken out of an MCU movie and then put together. So yeah. I think they did a really great job. Wingtips in the water included.
At least 2 people didn't throw colors at each other. At least it was more interesting action than that. That's how WandaVision.
You're still talking. Yeah, I was exactly. You're still talking about the finale of WandaVision, right?
Purple. Well, I have red. Yeah. At least they actually did stuff. I actually really love the the way that Sam implemented the suit into just his basic movements. Like, if he's gonna do a little jump, he's gonna have a jump with just a little bit of the jet in there, and he's gonna do a turn. He's gonna, and it just makes it. It just looks really cool. I think it gives him a very unique fighting style that because he can utilize his wings in every little thing that he does just to
Yeah.
give him that edge.
Yeah, I mean, they did some really great stuff, not just in this episode. I love the Sam fighting Batroc because we really got to see, different ways he can use the wings while he's actually fighting someone.
Yep. That was actually pretty cool. I like that one too.
Of course, poor Batroc just got totally used, right?
Honestly, that's the point where Sharon is definitely has stepped over the line when she just shoots him because he knows too much.
Well,
kinda glad that
she
they
used
killed him.
mercury vapor to kill someone too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mercury
He
vapor and some
wasn't-
other things.
so,
Bad
among other
guy.
things. Yeah,
Yeah, but it was pretty brutal. I felt like they really pulled out some very kind of Renaissance art kind of images in this. There, I mean, how many times now have we
Archangel imagery.
seen the Archangel imagery, and not to mention the Piata? I mean, geez, how many times have we seen that in Marvel now? It's like, oh, someone's been, studying their Michelangelo sculptures.
I think the color scheme in the cinematography in this was top notch. I loved, the play between shadows and light, the lighting, and it's obviously something that I pay attention to, but it's like each frame was like composed perfectly and beautifully, and I think that's one thing I feel that the Mandalorian suffered from because they were so confined in the volume that they had one way of shooting it because of the limited space they had. They're in this stage, and this is where we at. And I know that it's a huge technological marvel, no pun intended, but I love the fact that this was shot on location for the most part. Obviously a little CGI enhancement, but it just looks great. It looks beautiful.
yeah.
One particular shot to me that just like stood out of my mind and will always be there is just the shot of when Sam's looking for Carly and he turns the corner and there's this silhouette of him in the suit, and it just looked awesome. Like just all this stuff of the way they played, like you said, the way they played with shadows in that final warehouse scene where they're chasing them. And I usually hate warehouse scenes.
Right.
That's another thing that Marvel likes to do, just put them in warehouses or weird gray rooms.
Yeah.
But the way they played with the lighting and the shadows, now that you mention it, really made that stand out and me not hate that it was in a warehouse. It's always
And actually,
warehouses.
it was more like a construction site. And working in construction, I do the same. I'm like, why are they using pin-lock scaffold right there? Why didn't that guy caulk the cap on that insulation? They got corrugated metal instead of stucco embossed. Like I'm looking at, and I'm sitting there going, Jesus Christ, I've been doing this too long.
That's great.
All right, so before we wrap up, I mean, were there any other things that you really loved about the episode or didn't like about the episode or things you want to see them do with these characters going forward?
There's this one part after the first big fight with Zemo when what's her name did like something with his arm, with Bucky's arm, and the arm fell off, and then Sam goes, "Did you know that it could do that?" No, I didn't know it. That was great.
Yeah, that was funny. There's a lot of good character moments like that I really liked. That made me like Sam. By the way, I don't want to throw it out there because at the beginning when we started doing these reviews at the beginning of the season, I said that I didn't like Sam. Like he just wasn't very likable to me. Now I'm a big fan. I think he's very likable. It's just something about it started clicking for me, and I really like him. Anthony Mackie's a great guy in real life. From all, I mean, I haven't met him, but from all things that I've seen, and everybody says he's like the nicest guy ever. So I think it's really great that I'm excited for him to get his own Captain America movie. Like, imagine how special that must feel for him.
Oh yeah.
Because signing on to be Falcon, I doubt that was in the contract. And so I like to imagine the conversation when the Russos and Kevin Feige told him they probably had that in the works. Yeah. I'm assuming the Russos, just because they're right under Kevin Feige probably in terms of people important at Marvel. So I think that's really, really great for him. I think he's going to own the role and make it his own. If anybody else is playing Sam, it would not work nearly as well for him to be Captain America. But because it's Anthony Mackie, I am fully in support of Sam being Captain America. I think he's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, whenever he gave the shield to see him at the end of the movie, I was like, really? Like that wasn't really how I wanted it to go, but this show has done a good job of selling me on the concept. And when he shows up and he says, "I'm Captain America," I was like, yes,
Yes,
which was
you
definitely not the way I felt when he pulled that, the case off the shield at the end of that last movie. And I honestly think that that's really was the main thing this show was for, was to sell us on the idea of, and now, and
Well, and interestingly enough, to sell us on him being Captain America, the journey that they took us on was him having to be convinced himself
yeah,
to be Captain America.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I loved the most about this show was, and I know a lot of people didn't like the line where he says, "You don't get to tell me who I am." But I feel like that kind of became emblematic for the journey of several of the characters in this show is you don't get to, Bucky, no one gets to tell him who he is. No one based on his past or anything else. And I feel like our important characters, really get to own who they want to be. And they get to make their own decisions. And, I think that's an important part of being a grown-up that sometimes I feel like people sort of miss, is that it's our job to be who we want to be. And I feel like people take a lot of personal responsibility in this show for making their own future. And I feel like that's really important. Of course, I've got kids, so I'm always interested in like what message. And I think that message is really important, especially for children, is that you don't have to be defined by anything else than, are you willing to be a good person and make the right decisions?
If only somebody had told Ben Solo that.
Right?
Turning it back to Star Wars.
Alas, always got to turn it back to Star Wars.
A whole different podcast.
Man, we were watching the Phantom of the Opera today, and I was like, oh, there's always been women who are obsessed with really messed up men.
In mass. Yeah.
Who ships Christine and the Phantom? I'm just saying. No.
Me.
Yeah.
I mean, not by the end of it. By the end, I was like, no, but
Okay, now, come on. He convinces her that he's the ghost of her dead father.
Yeah, it's hot.
And then wants her to come and live with him in his lair to serve him and to sing.
Hey, he's not the first guy to take advantage of somebody's daddy issues, Marissa.
And he won't be the last.
No, it's a problem, y'all. It's a problem.
All right. Anybody got any last thoughts before we wrap up?
On Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
Yeah,
not
Falcon and
Phantom
Winter
and the
Soldier.
Opera.
It's a different show. I would love to do a Fan of the Opera podcast with you, Marisha. I'm down.
Oh, awesome.
We'll make
do
it a special.
Yeah. Daniel, you're not invited. We'll do it with
Thank
Can
you.
I? Can I be not
he's like,
invited?
You
good.
could be not invited. Me and David will talk Phantom of the Opera without you guys, because y'all are just dragging us down.
You said that like
only-
we're supposed to be disappointed.
I'm only coming in if I can lurk in the background dressed as the Phantom.
But I joke though. Actually, I do like Phantom of the Opera. To be honest
That
with
was
you.
great.
All right, guys. Well, thanks, Ro, for coming on and talking Falcon and Winter Soldier with us. And
Thanks, Ro.
Yeah, I was definitely looking forward to it. Like I said, I really enjoyed the series and was itching to talk to somebody about it. So awesome!
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely.
great.
And let everybody know where they can find you and your podcast.
Sure. So I am 1/3 of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. You can find us on Twitter and all socials at Scarif Podcast and at scarifscuttlebutt.com. And obviously, of course, with all the wonderful people of the Red 5 Network at red5network.com.
Awesome. And David, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter's crossing the Delaware at David_JG Peoples.
And
Touche.
David, you're on your way to Disney. Y'all are both on your way to Disney. Are you going to try to do some stuff on the YouTube
Yeah,
channel?
definitely on the YouTube channel, the Science Fictionary. We are going to have some some videos about Hollywood Studios and Star Wars World, and Harry Potter over at Universal Studios. Nothing you haven't seen before, but we're just our own little perspective of it. We're gonna eat some rancor meat. We're gonna drink some blue milk. And drink some butterbeer. So it's gonna be great. I just informed Dad today that they actually offer the milk with alcohol. So
he's all in now.
It just got more exciting.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel.
Also, to clarify, it's not real milk because I'm really not big on putting tequila in my whole milk. Right.
No White Russians for you, huh?
No, not a Lebowski guy.
All right, Daniel. Where can people find you?
I am Dan C. Peeps on Twitter. I'm simple.
Marisha?
And you can find me on Instagram at princesses_and_Padawans, and I am P Padawans on Twitter.
All right, and I'm Andrew Gore. You can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. Check out our website, thesciencefictionary.com. And as always, you can drop us a line at thesciencefictionary@gmail.com.
Oh, and you don't even have to plug the Red 5 network because we already did that.
Yeah.
Bro took care of that for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, everybody have a good night. Thank you for joining us in the chat, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.